Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is a banner day in the nation of Israel. Mr. Gilad Shalit, who has been a captive under the control of Hamas for the last 5 years, arrived home today, was united with his parents by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It's quite a burden that's been borne. Now, he was captured back before Netanyahu became the prime minister. He was captured way back in 2006. Mr. Netanyahu has now been prime minister for around 2.5 years and talked about the burden that he carried when he walked into the prime minister's office and realized this was one of the major situations he would need to deal with during his prime ministership. Well, there was much negotiation that went on. Prime Minister Netanyahu stated that there were times the price demanded by Hamas was too high. They demanded that the most serious criminals be liberated in exchange for Shalit, some of them that Netanyahu simply could not do. However, when the price was adjusted and Netanyahu realized they were within reach of an agreement for the liberty of Shalit, then he immediately moved to strike the deal. Now, there are a lot of mixed emotions taking place here. You've got one Israeli prisoner being traded for 1,027 Palestinian prisoners. Many of these prisoners actually have blood on their hands. Many of these prisoners were involved in terrorist attacks on the nation of Israel. One young lady in particular drove the vehicle that let out the suicide bomber that then walked into the Sbarro pizza shop, detonated his bomb, killing himself and 15 or 20 others in the Sbarro pizza shop. She has been in prison since that time. I do not remember the details of her capture. Nonetheless, she's been there. Well, today she went free. She, along with 1,026 prisoners, went free. Now, there are conditions. Some of them will be able to go back to a level of normalcy. Others of them are confined to Gaza. They are not allowed in the West Bank. Yet others of them are not even allowed to stay in Gaza. They are to be deported to other countries willing to receive them, such as Syria, Jordan, Qatar, and Turkey. Those are 4 nations that in particular were named in the article that I read. So there are prisoners that are to be dispersed. Everything was negotiated by Egypt. That's interesting because there have been some real questions about where Egypt would actually stand in all of this after the fall of the government of Mr. Hosni Mubarak. Nevertheless, the present government of Egypt, the military government, was able to negotiate this deal between Hamas and Israel. This is the first time that Israel has ever dealt with Hamas. They have now made an agreement with Hamas. Hamas is stating that Israel has crossed its own red line. Now, in Israel, there were many people highly critical of Benjamin Netanyahu. Some of the people whose relatives have been killed by some of the terrorists being released today objected vigorously. They actually went to the Israeli Supreme Court asking the Supreme Court to block the prisoner exchange. However, the court previously has made it a policy not to involve itself in such dealings by the government, and they held to that this time as well. Around 70% of the Israeli people agreed with the exchange, and so it was accomplished this morning. Mr. Gilad Shalit arrived at the Air Force Base in up around Tel Aviv, and then was transported by helicopter to his home in the northern Galilee where his parents live. When he arrived at the airport, he was embraced by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and then Prime Minister Netanyahu delivered him to his parents and said, "I have brought your son home." There were tears, there were embraces, there were kisses. You can imagine 5 years wondering whether you would ever see your son or not. Mr. Netanyahu said, I was haunted by the possibility that Gilad Shalit would never be reunited with his parents. After all, Ron Arad has not been seen from for 25 years. We do not know whether he is dead or alive, and I did not want the story of Gilad Shalit to turn out that way. Consequently, this is the culmination. Now, many people in Israel are criticizing, but over 70%, according to the polls, agree that even though it was a huge price to pay, yet it was the right thing to do. Israel has a policy. We do not leave our soldiers behind. We do whatever it takes. Well, Mr. Netanyahu and the nation of Israel delivered on that promise today. It is an emotional time in Israel, and it is also a sobering time, knowing that many people whose loved ones were killed by terrorists, those same terrorists, now are walking free and clear with a full pardon. However, President or Prime Minister Netanyahu did say, if you have been set free today, make sure you never again involve yourself in terrorism. For if you do, your blood will be upon your own head. There's a very unveiled warning that if any of the terrorists return to their life of terrorism, that Israel will hunt them down and will bring them to justice. In this day of drone attacks, there is no terrorist that can rest easy at night, because the drones are always up there where you cannot see them, where you cannot hear them, but they do have live missiles that can suddenly strike with lethal force, executing judgment and justice. Some people even say that they have become the instrument of assassination before a person can have a trial or have the benefit of pleading innocent or guilty to charges. It has become a mode of operation even for the United States of America to carry out targeted assassinations against those that it believes are a genuine terrorist threat against its people. So it's an interesting time. It's an amazing day in the nation of Israel. Now, I told you yesterday that in addition to this late-breaking story, we also would return to yesterday's discussion. And here's what we were talking about yesterday in case you did not get to join into the program. What are the top issues that should be considered in the 2012 presidential election campaign? Today is October the 18th. The first election will be held around the first part of January, and that means we've got about 3 months max before we begin to elect the Republican candidate for president. Now, right now, it looks like the Republicans stand a good chance of winning the election. All the polls say that Obama is trailing almost anyone that the Republicans would choose to be their candidate. Now, if this is true, then in the next 3 to 5 months, we will choose our president. If that is true, now don't count President Barack Obama out, because many candidates have been trailing far away within a year of the election and end up winning the election. For example, George Bush Sr., George Herbert Walker Bush, had a 90% approval rating 1 year before the election, and yet he ended up losing the election to President Bill Clinton. Things can change. They can change fast. President Obama has racked up some fairly impressive credentials recently. He was able to get Osama bin Laden. It looks like he's going to be able to withdraw from Iraq. Now then, he's been involved in the negotiation for the deal for Gilad Shalit. And so one thing after another, if the economy took a sharp turn upward, then it might be quite difficult to defeat Barack Obama. So that's the reason. We don't know what's going to happen in the 2012 election. It does appear that that election could forever determine the future of the United States of America. And if a Republican is in fact going to win that election, then that choice may be made within the next 3 to 5 months. So it's important for you and me to know who we're voting for. Now, the time has come and gone to vote for personalities. We need to vote for principles, for issues. And so we're asking you, what are the litmus tests out there that you go by when determining whether you will vote for a person or not? No matter if you like them, no matter if they're your particular race, no matter what the other conditions are there principles, are there issues that you absolutely require a candidate to embrace before they will get your vote? Now, that's what we're talking about. And then what we're hoping to do is, after we list these issues, we want to send a questionnaire to every presidential candidate asking them for their response, and also inviting them to be on Politics and Religion so they can answer in full the questions that you are going to be raising on the program yesterday and today, so that they can explain, and hopefully you can call in and converse with each of them. That's what we're hoping to do if they will agree to be on this program. So we want to get back to the phones, because I see more of you are lining up right now to let us know what you think the critical issues are and what a person must embrace before you will give them your vote. We're going now to Michigan, and Paul is calling. Hello, Paul. What's on your mind today?
Good afternoon, Brother Baxter. I got this email from another brother, and it's a picture of Theodore Roosevelt in 1907 addressing the crowd. And the topic is Theodore Roosevelt's ideas on immigrants and being an American in 1907.
And
in the first place, we should insist that if the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us, he should be treated on an exact equality with everyone else, for it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of creed or birthplace or origin. But this is predicated upon the person's becoming in every facet an American, and nothing but an American. There can be no divided allegiance here. Any man who says he is an American, but something else also isn't an American at all. I'm almost done. We have room for but one flag, the American flag. For one language here, that is the English language, and we have room but only.
Paul, I know I cut you a little short. If you'd like to hold, I'll hold you over in the break. If not, we'll comment when we get back.